Most people go through life reacting, driven by impulse, fear, and emotion. They make weak decisions, sabotage themselves, and wonder why they never rise. They are controlled instead of being in control. But what if you could think on a higher level? What if you could strip away hesitation, fear, and uncertainty, and move with pure strategy? These lessons are mind hacks, psychological weapons designed to make you stronger, sharper, and unstoppable. They will rewire your thinking, giving you the ability to control emotions instead of being ruled by them. Make decisions with logic, not impulse. See the world as it is, not as fear or ego distorts it. Turn hesitation into clarity and weakness into power. These are the tools of the elite, the mental frameworks that separate those who rule from those who obey. Master them, and you will gain an unfair advantage in business, relationships, decision-making, and life itself. The weak react, the strong think. The question is, which one will you be? Lesson 1. The power of thinking differently. Most people don't think. They react. They move like puppets, strings pulled by emotions, impulses, and distractions. They let fear dictate their hesitation, excitement dictate their recklessness, and anger dictate their downfall. And they wonder why they never rise. But the world does not reward those who react. It does not crown the emotional, the impulsive, or the easily distracted. The world belongs to those who think, those who see past the noise, past the illusions, and past the bait laid out to trap the weak-minded. Look around you. Who holds the power? Who controls the systems, the wealth, the influence? It's not the ones who lash out in anger, who cry over setbacks, who drown in self-pity. It's the ones who stand still while others panic, the ones who observe while others lose themselves in the chaos, the ones who plan while others chase temporary pleasure. And yet most people will never understand this. They will live and die as slaves to their impulses. They will scream at shadows, fight meaningless battles, and waste their lives in pursuit of things that never mattered. Because thinking, true thinking, takes discipline. It takes control. And control is a skill most people never develop. But you are not most people. You are here because something inside you knows there is another way. A path that leads away from the herd, away from the cycle of reaction and regret. So ask yourself, when was the last time your emotions cost you something valuable? A relationship? A deal? An opportunity? How many times have you sabotaged yourself because you acted before you thought? Because you let a fleeting emotion make a permanent decision for you? Think back. Find 3 moments where your lack of control left you weaker, not stronger. 3 times when, had you only paused, had you only stepped back, cleared your mind, and seen the bigger picture, you could have won. Because that is the difference between the ordinary and the extraordinary, between the ones who are ruled and the ones who rule, between those who spend their lives reacting and those who engineer their own fate. It starts now. From this moment forward, you will not be moved by impulse. You will not be swayed by distraction. You will not let emotions dictate your destiny. You will think first. You will plan first. You will act only when the moment is right. And when the weak crumble around you, when they panic, when they show their hands too soon, you will stand above them, calm, patient, and ready, because you see what they do not. The world belongs to those who think. So decide, will you be ruled by impulse, or will you master the power of thinking differently? Lesson 2. The emotional delay rule. The greatest mistakes in history were made in seconds. A man lets his anger take over. He says the wrong thing, makes the wrong move, and his entire life changes. A leader makes a decision in fear, hesitates when he should act, and an empire crumbles. And the worst part? They knew better. But in that moment, they weren't thinking. They were reacting. They were ruled instead of being in control. Now look at your own life. How many times have you spoken words you couldn't take back? How many times have you let excitement make a promise you weren't ready to keep? How many times has fear made you hesitate, costing you an opportunity that would never come again? Emotions are powerful, but they are temporary. Science proves it. The most intense emotions, whether it's rage, fear, excitement, or frustration, last only 10 to 15 minutes at their peak. That's it. And yet, in those few minutes, people make decisions that cost them years. But the strongest, the ones who dominate, they don't fall into that trap because they know one thing. Control over emotion is control over outcome. The difference between the powerful and the powerless is not the absence of emotions. It's the ability to pause, to think, to strip away impulse and act only when it is time. So here's your new rule. You will never make another decision in the heat of the moment. Not when you're angry, not when you're scared, not when you're desperate. How to apply the emotional delay rule. Step 1. Create space before reacting. The moment you feel a surge of emotion, stop. Do not speak. Do not act. Wait. Give yourself at least 10 minutes. If it's a major decision, wait longer. Because the longer you wait, the clearer you think. Step 2. Separate emotion from facts. Write it down. What actually happened? Not how you feel about it. Not the story your emotions are telling you. Just the raw facts. Treat the situation like a detective, not a victim. This forces your mind to shift from emotional to logical. Step 3. Ask the cold, calculated question. If I had no emotions right now, what would be the smartest decision? Not the easiest decision, not the most comfortable, the smartest, because that's what matters. Step 4. Observe how others fail. Watch how most people sabotage themselves. Notice how they lash out, expose their weaknesses, and destroy opportunities because they let emotions control them. Every time you remain calm, while others lose control, you gain power over them. Why? This rule makes you instantly more powerful. You win conflicts. Others react emotionally. You respond strategically. You control your reputation. No more saying things you regret. You make better decisions. Every choice is based on logic, not impulse. You gain an edge over the weak-minded. While they crumble, you remain untouchable. This is the first step toward absolute control. Every second you pause before reacting is a second where you take back power. While others let their emotions burn them to the ground, you will stand above them, calm, deliberate, and unstoppable. Because the one who controls their emotions controls everything. Lesson 3. Thinking in numbers, not feelings. Most people live in a world of illusions. They make choices based on hunches, on gut feelings, on fleeting emotions that shift like the wind. They say things like, I feel like this won't work, or I just have a good feeling about this, and they wonder why they keep failing. Feelings are unreliable. They fluctuate with mood, with stress, with outside influence. They tell you one thing today and the opposite tomorrow. And yet, most people base their entire lives on them. But the ones who rise, the ones who dominate, they don't trust emotions. They trust numbers, data, and probabilities. They don't say, I feel like this is risky. They say, there's a 70% chance this fails based on past data. They don't say, I think this will work. They say, what evidence do I have that proves this is the right move? Because high-level thinkers don't guess. They calculate. And that's where you start today. How to apply the think in numbers rule. Step 1. Replace feelings with facts. Catch yourself using emotional language. If you hear yourself saying, "I feel like this is a bad idea," stop. Reframe it. What past data suggests this is a bad idea? Every decision must be rooted in logic, not fear. Step 2. Ask, what do the numbers say? Before making a move, check for quantifiable proof. Business decisions. Analyze market trends, case studies, and competitor performance. Investments. Look at risk to reward ratios and historical success rates. Personal choices. Study past patterns. What happened to others in similar situations? Step 3. Break down risk. Logically. Fear exaggerates risk. Data clarifies it. What is the worst-case scenario? What is the probability of failure? Does the potential reward outweigh the risk? If the numbers are in your favor, act. If they aren't, adjust. Either way, you decide based on logic, not emotion. Why this rule gives you an unfair advantage. You make better decisions. No more reckless risks, no more hesitation. You see the world as it is, not as your emotions paint it. You gain an edge over the weak-minded. While they rely on instinct, you rely on facts. You predict outcomes better than anyone around you. Most people will continue to live blindly, ruled by their emotions, making decisions based on feelings instead of facts. But not you. You will move with precision, accuracy, and control. While they guess, you will know. And the one who knows, the one who calculates, the one who sees reality as it truly is, that is the one who wins. Lesson 4. The third-person perspective. You see it so clearly when it's someone else's problem. Your friend is stuck, making a terrible decision, blinded by emotion. You spot the mistake instantly. You know exactly what they need to do. The solution is obvious. But when it's your problem, when it's your emotions clouding the situation, suddenly everything feels complicated. Suddenly logic takes a back seat. Suddenly you're just as lost as the rest of them. Why? Because when emotion gets involved, clarity dies. And that is where the weak fall. They drown in their own feelings, unable to separate themselves from the moment, unable to see the game for what it really is. They sabotage themselves, making mistakes they would easily recognize in someone else. But the ones who dominate, the ones who always make the right move, they step outside themselves. They strip away their personal bias and view their situation as if it belonged to someone else. They do not think like players trapped in the game. They think like the chess master watching from above. And now, so will you. How to apply the third-person perspective. Step 1. See your life as a chessboard. Picture your situation not as yourself, but as a strategist looking at the entire board. What are the possible moves? What option gives you the greatest long-term advantage? If this was a game of strategy, what is the smartest play? This removes emotion. This removes hesitation. This puts you in control. Step 2. Detach from personal bias. Your emotions are distorting reality. They are making small problems seem bigger, risks seem scarier, and decisions seem more complicated than they really are. Strip it down. Ask yourself, what is the most logical decision based on advantage versus risk? Which choice puts me in the strongest position later? What would an outsider say is the obvious best move? The weak allow emotion to guide them. The powerful analyze the game, not their feelings. Step 3. Ask, if this wasn't my problem, what would I tell someone else? You've given great advice before. You've helped others navigate their problems with clarity and logic. Now do the same for yourself. If a friend had this problem, what advice would I give them? If I had no emotional attachment to this, what would be the rational decision? If a strategist had to handle this, how would they approach it? The more you step outside of yourself, the clearer the solution becomes. Why this rule makes you more powerful than 99% of people. You remove emotional distortion. While others are blinded by attachment, you see with clarity. You make better decisions. No more hesitation, no more self-sabotage, only strategy. You gain the upper hand in conflicts because you think tactically, not emotionally. You develop a psychological edge. While others are overwhelmed, you remain calculated and composed. Most people will continue to drown in their own emotions. They will struggle with indecision, ruled by feelings instead of facts. But you will think like a grandmaster, moving pieces with precision, never revealing your hand, always 3 steps ahead. Because the world belongs to those who can see reality as it is, not as their emotions paint it. Lesson 5. Mastering fear and worst-case thinking. Fear is the greatest weapon used against you. It controls you. It makes you hesitate when you should act. It makes you run when you should stand your ground. It keeps you small when you were meant to be great. Most people are slaves to it. They let fear whisper in their ear, telling them to wait, to doubt, to surrender. They imagine disaster, humiliation, failure, so they do nothing. They remain stuck. But here's the truth. Fear only has power if you let it remain undefined. Your mind exaggerates danger when it doesn't know what it's dealing with. The unknown feels massive, unstoppable, crushing. But the moment you define the worst-case scenario, you take away its strength. You realize most risks won't destroy you. Most failures aren't permanent. Most fears are just illusions. And once you neutralize fear, nothing can stop you. How to apply the worst-case thinking rule. Step 1. Ask, what's the absolute worst that could happen? Your brain fears the unknown, so force yourself to confront it head-on. If you fail in business, what does that actually look like? If you take a risk and it doesn't work, what is the real consequence? If you make a bold move and people judge you, does it truly change your life? Most of the time, when you describe the worst case in clear detail, you realize it is far less catastrophic than your emotions made it seem. Step 2. Ask, can I survive that? Fear makes you believe failure will end you. That one mistake will ruin your entire future. But 99% of the time, you can recover. If you lost all your money, could you rebuild? Yes. If you embarrassed yourself, would people care in a month? No. If you failed completely, would it truly be permanent? No. Once you see that even the worst-case scenario is survivable, fear loses its grip. You take back control. Step 3. Prepare for the worst, then move forward with confidence. The strongest minds don't ignore fear. They calculate it, plan for it, and then crush it. If the worst happens, how will I handle it? What backup plans can I put in place? What can I do now to strengthen myself against this risk? You don't run from fear. You stare it in the face and prepare for it. Why this rule makes you unstoppable? You move while others freeze. Fear controls them. You control fear. You take calculated risks while they stay trapped in doubt. You embrace failure while they avoid challenges altogether. You become untouchable because nothing can surprise or overwhelm you. Fear only controls those who refuse to define it. But the moment you face the worst-case scenario, you take away its power. That's when you become unstoppable. To the returning GrimFace warriors, you are the reason this movement is expanding, reaching thousands, and changing lives. Your dedication, your mindset, and your hunger for absolute control over your destiny have made an impact far beyond what you can see. You're not just watching, you're building something greater. For those of you new to the movement, Welcome to the place where weakness dies and power is forged. This is not just motivation. This is transformation. If you're tired of reacting, tired of living by someone else's rules, and ready to train your mind for dominance, then subscribe now. Because this is more than just a channel. This is a revolution, and the world belongs to those who think, move, and strike with precision. Stay sharp, stay ruthless, stay GrimFace.